Before we start, leave a like, subscribe to the channel right now, and turn on the bell, because that helps a lot to keep the content reaching you and make sure you don't miss any important update like the one we're going to break down today. Because it's big, it's heavy, and it completely changes the NBA landscape at this point in the season. What's coming to light right now is no longer loose rumor. It's no longer that distant noise that pops up, disappears, and never turns into anything concrete. What emerged over the last few hours is a set of signals, reports, and movements pointing in a very clear direction. The possibility of Giannis Antetokounmpo wearing a Golden State Warriors jersey stopped being a distant idea and became a real operation. Worked behind the scenes, with sky-high costs and tough decisions being considered by the franchise. Golden State isn't just monitoring Giannis's situation with the Milwaukee Bucks. This isn't generic interest. It's not that standard, let's feel the market phone call. What's happening now is an aggressive, calculated move, fully aware that this might be the last big chance to maximize Stephen Curry's final years at the highest possible competitive level. And when you start putting the pieces together, everything makes a lot more sense. The franchise's moment, the aging of the historic core, the pressure for immediate results, and on the other side, one of the most dominant players in the NBA, still in his physical and technical prime, in a scenario where Milwaukee can no longer offer a solid title project in the medium term. The central point is that information has surfaced indicating that, internally, Golden State has started treating virtually the entire roster as tradable, with one very clear exception: Stephen Curry. That's not a small detail. That's a structural change in how the franchise sees itself and its own pillars. For a long time, the narrative was that there were two completely untouchable names: Curry and Draymond Green, and that made sense within the team's identity. Draymond has always been seen as the emotional heart, the defensive leader, the player who gives the system its soul. Even with all the controversies, excesses, and offensive limitations everyone knows. But that narrative started to crumble, and it wasn't slowly. It happened relatively fast. Weeks ago, the franchise itself was letting it be known that it would not, under any circumstances, include Draymond Green in a trade, not even for a name the size of Giannis Antetokounmpo. The message was clear. Trading Draymond would break something internally, shake up the locker room too much, and could create a dangerous ripple effect. Now, the message is different. Now, what you hear is that Stephen Curry is the only name truly outside any conversation. Everything else can be included, depending on the scenario. And when a franchise with Golden State's history, culture, and structure lets that leak, it's not by accident. It indicates the seriousness level has gone up. It indicates the front office is willing to pay a price that used to feel unthinkable. It indicates that the Curry window is weighing more than any emotional attachment to symbols of the past. And when we bring that into the context of Giannis Antetokounmpo, the logic becomes even colder and more objective. Giannis isn't just a great player. He's a player who changes a franchise's ceiling overnight. We're talking about someone who, even on an unstable team, keeps delivering elite numbers, outrageous impact on both ends, and a physical presence with no real substitute in this league. This season, even dealing with injuries and a roster full of fit problems, Giannis is still posting averages around 28 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists. But the numbers alone don't tell the whole story. The real impact shows up when you look at advanced metrics, efficiency, and how much he holds the team up on the floor, even when everything around him collapses. And that's exactly where Golden State sees the opportunity. Putting Giannis next to Stephen Curry isn't just adding talent. It's creating a type of duo the current NBA simply isn't prepared to defend consistently. Spacing, constant rim pressure, elite defense, fast transition, and a massive margin for tactical adjustments. When you compare that to where Draymond Green is right now, the conversation changes tone. Draymond is still extremely valuable defensively, still organizes the game, still vocal and smart, but he no longer provides the same total impact as years ago. The body feels it, the offense is increasingly limited, and the emotional weight, once a boost, often becomes a problem. What used to be unthinkable turns into a cold equation. Is it worth keeping the emotional identity intact, or do you bet everything on a player who can instantly return the team to true title contender status? And this mindset shift doesn't happen out of nowhere. It happens because Golden State understands time is cruel. Every season that passes without a major pivot is a wasted season of Stephen Curry's career. And that kind of waste, for a franchise that's already won so much, starts to become unacceptable. Another point that makes all of this even more serious is the contractual and physical context of other pieces involved. For a long time, it was assumed any robust negotiation would require big contracts to match salaries, and one of the most cited names was Jimmy Butler. But with recent information about a serious knee injury that ended his season in January, that path practically closes. That automatically pushes the focus to Draymond Green, not only for financial fit, but because he becomes the biggest symbolic piece that can unlock a truly competitive offer from Golden State's side. When you combine that with draft picks, young talent, and future flexibility, the package starts to make sense from Milwaukee's perspective, especially if the franchise decides it needs to restart or at least redefine its core. And here's a crucial detail: the fact that these things are going public. Teams don't let this kind of stuff leak when they're only trying to test the market. Leaks like this usually happen when talks are already advanced enough to prepare the ground, both internally and externally. It's no longer that story of, this guy is untouchable, that guy too. The conversation now is direct, almost raw. If Giannis Antetokounmpo is truly available, Golden State is going to put almost everything on the table, except Stephen Curry. That completely changes the weight of this narrative. It changes the league's perception. It changes how other teams view their own offers. And it changes, most of all, the fans' expectation, because people start to understand something huge could happen at any moment. And there's still an external factor reinforcing that red. When you look at prediction and betting markets, Golden State shows up as the favorite in a potential Giannis trade scenario before the deadline. That doesn't come from nowhere. Those markets react to information, flow, and signals that aren't always public, but do indicate real probability. So this isn't just fan desire. It's not only media narrative. There's money, expectation, and concrete analysis pointing to the same place. And all of this leads to an inevitable question, one that divides the fan base, the league, and even former players. Would you accept including Draymond Green in a trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo? That question isn't simple, it isn't emotionally comfortable, and it doesn't have an easy answer. It involves identity, gratitude, legacy, and at the same time, ambition, pragmatism, and urgency. But before you answer that definitively, there's still a lot of context to break down. There's competition from other teams, the role of draft picks, Giannis's real impact on this specific roster, and what Golden State would need to keep so it doesn't become too thin. As we move forward in this discussion, it's impossible not to look at the surrounding landscape and understand why Golden State, in this exact moment, appears to have a real advantage over the competition. It's not just desire. It's not only boldness. There's structure, there's capital, and there's future reading behind all of it. Other teams are also watching Giannis Antetokounmpo's situation. The Miami Heat, Minnesota Timberwolves, Toronto Raptors, and even the Los Angeles Lakers show up as interested to different degrees. The problem is that interest in the NBA doesn't close deals. What closes deals is the ability to build a package that satisfies financially, competitively, and strategically the team giving up a generational star. And that's exactly where Golden State starts to stand out. When you analyze draft pick inventory, contractual flexibility, and the projected value of those picks in the medium and long term, the Warriors emerge as one of the few teams capable of offering something that truly makes the Milwaukee Bucks stop, look carefully, and seriously consider it. Golden State's picks carry a different kind of weight than other franchises' picks. There's a clear read that the team is entering the final stretch of the Stephen Curry era. That doesn't mean immediate collapse, but it does mean that, in a few years, those picks could become extremely valuable, and league executives know it. When you add to that young players who still have growth margin, contracts that allow retooling, And the inclusion of a name like Draymond Green to balance salaries and provide immediate leadership, the package stops being theoretical and becomes concrete. From Milwaukee's side, there's also an inevitable logic at work. Keeping Giannis at all costs only makes sense if there's a clear path back to the top. Otherwise, holding an asset of that magnitude while the team stalls can be the worst possible decision. NBA history is full of examples of franchises that waited too long and ended up losing value in trades that could have been far more advantageous. And when you look coldly at Giannis's performance, even in an inconsistent roster, the numbers and the impact speak for themselves. He remains among the league leaders in individual impact metrics. His net rating stays positive even when the team struggles collectively. He protects the rim, attacks the basket like few in the history of the game, and forces any defense to completely reorganize. Putting that player into a system like Golden State's is almost a perfect lab experiment. The spacing created by Stephen Curry completely changes how Giannis would be defended. Double teams would arrive late, the paint would be more exposed, and the transition game would gain a force the team doesn't have today. Defensively, the combination is also terrifying. Giannis covers space, switches, protects the rim, and still runs the floor like a wing. Even with Draymond Green gone, the defensive brain for years, Giannis's physical and athletic impact would compensate for a big part of that loss, especially if the front office can adjust the roster around him. That's why many analysts insist this isn't an emotional trade, it's math. It's not about disrespecting what Draymond built, it's about understanding where each player sits on the curve. Giannis is in his prime. Draymond is on the downward slope of total impact. Still useful, still important, but no longer decisive like before. And the very fact that this discussion is happening openly already shows Golden State has accepted that reality. There's no longer that absolute protection, that loyalty is non-negotiable message. The message now is win while you still can. Another element strengthening that read is the front office's recent behavior. Smaller moves, rotation tweaks, attempts to keep flexibility, and a clearly aggressive posture in the market. None of that happens by accident. Everything points to an organization that knows exactly what it wants and understands the risk it's willing to take. And the risk in this case is high. If the trade doesn't happen, the simple act of putting Draymond Green into this kind of conversation already changes internal dynamics. Players notice, the locker room feels it, the league watches, but Golden State seems willing to accept that cost because the potential prize is too big to ignore. If Giannis Antetokounmpo arrives, the team doesn't automatically become champion, but it becomes feared again. It becomes relevant in any playoff series. It becomes a destination nobody wants to face in big games. And for a franchise used to dominating the league for nearly a decade, that matters more than any attachment to the past. At the end of the day, the question echoing isn't only whether it's worth trading Draymond Green for Giannis Antetokounmpo. The real question is, how many chances like this does a franchise get before the window shuts for good? Golden State seems to have answered that internally. And the answer is clear. When a player of Giannis's caliber becomes available, you don't hesitate. You organize, adjust the message, accept hard decisions, and go as far as it takes. Now it remains to be seen whether Milwaukee will open that door all the way and whether the final details align before the deadline. Until then, every signal, every leak, and every shift in tone only reinforces the feeling that this story is far from mere speculation. If you enjoyed this breakdown, leave a like right now, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any update. Because when this saga moves forward, you'll want to be on top of everything from the very first minute.